Welcome to the Germinate podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. This episode is brought to you by Haven Steel, one of the newest supporters we have here on the Germinate podcast, and we couldn't be more grateful to have them on board. They are specialty heat treaters who've mastered the art of steel form products built to last longer and deliver the kind of durability manufacturers depend on. They support businesses throughout the globe with American-made reliability, but really here's what I appreciate the most about Haven. They're genuinely great people first. Owner Ken Brown and his team carry a purpose and a drive that's rare in today's business world. They don't just work hard on their 2 plants in Haven, Kansas and McKinsey, Tennessee. They care. They put their customers first, they show up when it matters, and they stand behind every product they manufacture. So if you manufacture agricultural equipment or distribute heat-treated components, Haven Steel is the only name you need to call. And I'll say this, Haven Steel is up to something special. They are investing, expanding, and stepping into a new chapter that's going to get this industry's attention. So stay tuned, everyone. Keep your eye on Haven Steel and learn more at havensteel.com, havensteel.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the Germinate podcast. We are just off the cusp of the 75th anniversary, or the 75th annual FEMA convention in Las Vegas. As we were recording this is the 6th of November, so we just got back from Vegas last week. So I want to give a shout out to the Farm Equipment Manufacturers Association. We in my other life outside the podcast, we formed a good partnership there. So for those of you looking to connect sort of people, products, all the ideas shaping the future of farm equipment, go check out FEMA. It's a great organization. In fact, it's how our guest and I today met. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But website is farmequip.org. You can go there, or you can send me an email as well, joe@embosales.com. We can talk more about what a membership looks like, what the value proposition is there. So check them out. We appreciate FEMA for supporting the podcast. Also want to shout out to Haven Steel out of Haven, Kansas, right outside of Wichita. New partnership that we've just kind of signed on board. And for all those looking to partner with us, we really can't do this podcast without you guys. So really appreciate all those folks reaching out to us. Means a ton. A lot of people came up to me last week at FEMA and said, hey, like the podcast. And it's weird. It's a good feeling. So appreciate that. So Haven Steel out of Haven, Kansas, havensteel.com. They're selling a bunch of products, steel heat treated products. They do forging, powder coating, heat treating, hot forming, all done in Haven, Kansas. And they have a plant in Tennessee as well. Very impressive place, impressive people. You OEMs out there, get in touch with Haven. Ken Brown, Chris Brown, Tom O'Brien, Kevin Pop, just the really the salt of the earth people. So, we still work in an industry where it's good to do business with people that still have that shared purpose. So shout out to Haven Steel. Appreciate those guys. We'll get some more sponsorship stuff up for them here as the time goes on. All right, there's all the announcements. My guest today, Mr. Colin Hurd with a company called Mach. He is the CEO of Mach. Colin and I met, about a year ago or so, Colin? Is that accurate?
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember this. We were sitting at a table at a FEMA convention, eating lunch or breakfast or something, and started shooting the you know what. And before you know it, a connection formed. And I was really impressed with what you guys are doing at Mach. It's kind of this new age. I shouldn't say new thing, but it's technology, agtech, that's part of FEMA a little bit, but needs to be a lot more. So for those that don't know you and know what Mach is, give everybody the backstory. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. Happy to do that. Well, thanks for having me on, Joe. And just looking forward to the conversation. I would say, in a nutshell, my background is, they start after my third startup, people started calling me a serial entrepreneur, and
Yep. Yep.
that's a lot better than a serial something else. But
Good
um,
point.
yeah, so uh, I guess you could say that about me. Mach is the third company that I've helped start and found, and what we're really focused on is allowing equipment manufacturers, not just in agriculture, but primarily in agriculture, to automate the machinery that is doing the work, right? And so there's a lot to that. There's physical hardware, electronics that need to be put on these machines. There's also a whole bunch of software that enables them to do work, and that's our focus. So we work directly with equipment OEMs and integrate at a factory level solutions for their markets. And so that takes a lot of different shapes and forms. But what's unique about Mach, I think, is that we kind of have a foundational tech stack, is how I would describe it. And so whether you're trying to automate a tillage tool, or you're trying to make an autonomous tank for demining, which one of our customers does, we have basically the same tech stack that can enable both those different applications, which is kind of cool.
That's freaking super cool, man. I can't wait to get into this. But walk me back a little bit. You said you were a serial entrepreneur. I'm interested in that. So you grow up, and I know you live in Iowa now. You grew up in Iowa, or where'd you grow up?
Yep, grew up in Iowa, actually, just about a mile from where I live today,
Okay.
Story City area. And I went to, well, I was homeschooled. And so that actually allowed me to have quite a bit of time to pursue other interests in life besides just being stuck in a classroom all day long from 8 to 3 or whatever. So I started in high school working for a local farmer, and that's where, for me, ag kind of developed into a passion. And then with that, I started, I went to Iowa State. I studied agriculture studies and had a minor in business. While I was in school, I actually founded my first company, which for me is like still super useful, the knowledge and education that I got through that first business, because we were an equipment manufacturer. That company, we were building a product. It was a tillage product that you could mount onto a planter to reduce pinch row compaction. So if you're familiar with pinch row compaction, right, it's just the weight of the tires, and it creates some yield drag in the center rows.
Yeah, well, it's a big deal. I mean, yeah, they've
Yeah.
been struggling and battling now for years and years and years. So you're in college when you do this? Is it like a class that you take, or is this something you did on the side, or
Yeah, so I started out in college. My dad gave me some advice. He's like, "Look, you're really good at arguing. Maybe you should look at being an attorney." So I was like, "Okay, well, I don't really know what else to do. Maybe I'll be an attorney and then can make some money and buy some farmland and start farming one day." But ultimately, I took a different path. Took an ag law class and realized pretty quickly that it was not at all for me,
yeah.
and ended up in an entrepreneurship class taught by a guy that I'm sure a lot of people might know, named Kevin Kimley, is at Iowa State. So Kevin still today teaches a ag entrepreneurship class, and as a part of that class, we had to come up with a business idea. And so I came up with this concept to reduce pinch row compaction, pitched it in the class. There's a little, uh, basically like a little competition at the end of the semester. They bring in some judges, and that we won like $500. And so I was like, okay, good, done,
Yeah.
moving on.
Yeah, I
And
did it. I made it, right, yeah.
yeah, so Kevin came in and it was like, no, you got to keep doing this. I was like, no way, I don't have any money. There's no way I can do this and do school. And he's like, no, I'll help you. And so he helped find a little bit of a stipend just so he could run around and do some testing, and then ended up doing some field trials, um, and saw some decent results. Right, we saw an impact, and we couldn't really measure them great initially, but then worked with Iowa State Extension, did a more formalized study, found out that we could basically get 6 bushels an acre back on those pinch rows, which was pretty impactful. And So when I graduated college, I was fortunate to be able to work with my uncle who uh, runs van wall equipment, and he was kind of supportive of this, and so we put some money together and said, let's build some product, and no idea what we were doing. I'm not an engineer by any means, and so I started working with a great guy out of Holstein, Iowa, called uh, Kyle Myers, and Kyle was like one of these guys that could just build anything out of nothing, right? You just give him a concept and he could make it real. Super talented individual, and so he started building these track-till, is what we called the product. Started building these track-till units, and I don't know, I think we probably went around and sold about 4 or 5 the first year. They worked pretty well. We redesigned it, sold about 15 the next year, and the redesign was horrible. So every single one of them basically fell apart in the field, right?
Right.
And it was probably one of the worst experiences of my life.
I can
Great
imagine.
learning experience.
Yeah.
But if you've ever been on the other side of a phone call with a farmer who you have stopped from planting, it is not at all pleasant.
It's the worst. It is the worst. Yes. Been there and done that.
It was a good crash course, and we ultimately made it through that spring and then had another good year after that. And I licensed the technology a little bit, about 4 years into it, to Yetter Manufacturing. And so it's actually a Yetter product today. But so I kind of got to the end of that first business and really hadn't, made any money, so to speak. We kind of broke even on stuff, and I was like, well, what do I do with my life now? Right.
Right. At this point, you're out of college, you're done, but you gave this a real shot. You didn't just create an idea in class, win the $500, and then, you start selling it, and then you license it to a major company like Yetter, dude. That's impressive for a college kid. I keep hearing this is near and dear to my heart because my daughter is 17 and she's about to go to college next year. So, the whole Charlie Kirk thing, college is a scam, and a lot of people believe it. My thing is, like, you've gotta get yourself engulfed with situations like you did to make it feel more like real life. What you did in that class happens all the time with venture capitalist pitches or private equity pitches. They're out there. It's semi real life. And so if you do that in college, I think that's when that's when the money's worth paying, my 2 cents anyways. But anyway,
No,
go.
I would agree. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I really didn't get engaged in that until like my senior year, but it made the classwork much more valuable because I was like trying to figure out how to uh, create a financial statement, right? So I could go take an accounting class and actually learn that and then apply it immediately
Right.
to my business, and it was great, And so that's definitely
Well, marketing, sales,
yeah, yep,
accounting, all that.
yep,
You have to learn it all. Then all of a sudden you got a real business, and then all of a sudden you realize, wow, this is not easy. This is difficult. Like you said,
yeah.
you had a
There's a
problem.
lot that you have to learn, and if you can find the classes and sort of tailor your curriculum to match what you're trying to do, it's super useful.
Yeah.
I think where you waste a lot of time in college and it doesn't become productive is if you don't know what you're trying to do, or if you don't have something in the real world that you can apply what you're learning to. So I was fortunate in that way.
Yeah, 100%. And even the basics of dealing with roommates and learning how to pay bills and being responsible to clean up, do your own dishes, do your laundry. I know it sounds funny, but I'm telling you, dude, those are life skills that you do learn in college. They're sort of unintended. You don't realize it. In spite of just going there and getting some worthless degree, there are some other skills you learn. But so is it a scam? Maybe there's parts of it, but maybe there's parts of it that are not. But I think if you utilize it the right way, and then it could be kind of fun too. That to me sounds exciting. It sounds fun. It sounds like I want to go to class. I want to go I want to learn the next thing. I want to apply this somehow to my life. And you're proof positive now. This is your third business. You said you started. You haven't talked about your second one yet, but now you're
Yeah.
3 businesses in, and I don't know. Maybe you figured it out by now, huh?
Well, you never truly figure it all out, and that's part of what I love about business as a whole. Is there's always another mountain to climb, another thing to learn, new ways to get better and hone the skill. And it's a constant challenge, and that's what I enjoy about it, I think. But so yeah, I get done with trap till, and then I'm sitting there. I'm kind of like, well, what do I do now? And I I guess my perspective was I just had a 4-year degree in business, right? Like, and so I didn't make any money, I didn't lose any money, but hey, this was really good learning. So how can I apply everything that I learned to something else, to a new problem set? And that's where I really started to recognize I would call it the root cause of pinch row compaction, actually, which is labor shortages, right? If if every farm had infinite labor, they could use a lot smaller, lighter weight equipment, never cause any pinch row compaction. The issue is like most farms have 10 days in the Midwest to plant all their acres, and they have one guy that has to do it, right? So then you're left with, 90-foot, 120-foot planters, heavy equipment, big tractors, and you're creating this problem that never has to be there in the first place. But um so I just started talking to the customer base and all the different farmers that I had a chance to meet and spend time with during track till, and started asking them like, hey, look, how big of a deal is labor on the farm? Do you
Uh-huh.
find qualified people? Do you have the help you need? If there was something that was autonomous, would that be useful for you? The resounding answer was like, absolutely. You
I
have to
bet.
figure this out.
I bet. Yeah.
So that's kind of what pushed me towards the next company, which were called Smart Ag. And Smart Ag was a retrofit solution that you could put on to a John Deere tractor and then use it during harvest to pull your grain cart. Um, but it was essentially, full supervised autonomy. So the combine operator was supervising the tractor, but he'd just push a button, the tractor would find the combine, line itself up. You do the unload on the go, and then sit it back to a staging area and be able to basically have a truck driver, somebody jump in it, dump it out of the truck, and rinse and repeat.
All with the value prop of eliminating, not eliminating, but trying to eliminate as much labor as possible.
Yeah, really just kind of reducing the friction around harvest, and it's busy, super busy time of year. Well, I shouldn't say most, a lot of farmers are relying on part-time help
Mm-hmm.
to run a grain cart. And so what it allowed them to do is have the ability to operate with less labor and less dependence on, kind of flaky labor in many cases. So, if they're running during the day, and they're high school kids are normally running the grain cart, but they have to be in school, they can still operate during the day without that constraint. And so yeah, it was a really challenging use case. There was a lot of dynamic path planning, is what we call it,
Mhm.
to get the grain cart to go to the combine, not track over any unharvested crop, line itself up, and then hold a position while you've got two varying speeds. But it was um, really pretty successful. It was about 3 years in. We had a handful of customers that were demoing it. We were probably about a year or so away from full commercialization on it. Built out a really just a fantastic team, brilliant engineers, and still to this day are doing some amazing stuff in the ag industry. But I think we were one of the first companies to apply AI, machine vision, to the ag space for situational awareness. So looking around the tractor,
Mhm.
identifying obstacles, making sure we don't hit stuff. And that became a really key piece of the business and the value of the technology in the long run.
What year was this then?
So that business started in 2016, and we basically owned it until the end of 2019. And at the end of 2019, we struggled to raise venture capital. We raised some capital locally, but we really needed to raise a substantial amount to kind of go from the initial product market fit
Uh-huh.
to, hey, this is a scaled solution, and we've got dealers set up all throughout the country that can support it, and we can build hundreds of these. And it just was tough, and part of that I think is just because the capital markets, especially at that time, were pretty much naive to ag tech, and they, so you could go pitch Silicon Valley, which I did. And I always like to say, like, I had to start every pitch explaining what a combine was. That's not a good sign,
No. Yeah. They know what a car is, they know what an airplane is, they might know what construction is, but they don't know a combine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say, so basically we kind of did the dog and pony show for a little bit and said, hey, look, this actually, the people who know the value of this technology are not the venture capitalists at this point. It's truly the OEMs and the other ag tech companies. And so we ran a process to sell the business and explore that market, and ultimately ended up with Raven Industries coming in at the end of 2019, offering to buy the company, and so we sold it to them in 2019.
Jeez, man, that's and that's another huge company. And at this point, you're not very old, and you've gone through 2 companies. You learn the value of maybe making quality parts in company 1. You don't wanna have failures. Dealing with
Right.
farmers that have failures once that happens, it's really tough to get them back.
Right.
Uh, company 2, you're like, it's not easy to raise money, especially in agriculture, or at the time. I think it's probably getting easier now, but I think it's still tough. Um but then you find a way to surround yourself with good people. You just said it. You said you surround yourself with some of the top engineers in the field, and you're talking about AI in 2016 when really nobody was talking about AI. There might have been a few little talks, but it was, I mean, I remember at that point in time, it was like, oh yeah, it's good. AI is going to be a thing, but not till, our kids are dead long. I'm gone, they're gone, everybody's gone. And in 2098, there'll be AI. Well, we all know that didn't happen. It's here. It's among us. So, you sell the Raven. Are you successful with that? I mean, are you at that point in time now you're ready, you've actually made some money?
Yeah, so it was a good outcome for pretty much everybody involved, and we returned money back to our early investors, and the team that had equity in the business, made a good return. So I think it was worth their while. It wasn't like some Wall Street level big exit, but it was a good exit, and it was something that I think more and more we're seeing ag tech companies kind of follow that path, right? Not trying to become this billion-dollar unicorn, but trying to get really solid hits on base, and that's what I would say that was.
Yeah, you're not trying to be Uber. You're just trying to get, like you said, a hit on the base. My experience with a lot of ag tech companies, especially startups, is, and you figured it out just from this conversation I've heard, is they're creating a product, but they may have not put as much R&D on the actual problem. The problem's not as big of a deal as they may think it is. So you're actually, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I'd be curious to hear, but also how much R&D, how much work, how much back end do you put on, okay, this is an actual real problem here, and there needs to be a solution, and then we come in and we can create an idea for this solution. Does that make sense to you, or?
Yeah, and I think in startup lingo, I would call that customer discovery.
Sure.
So, that's one of the things I see so many other, especially first time founders, kind of get wrong, right? As they say, look, we have this amazing technology, it's going to solve all these problems. And they spend all their energy building out the technology without ever really talking to who they're going to sell it to.
Right. There's all these cool features, benefits, all this fun, fluffy
Yeah.
stuff, and yeah, I get it. Yep.
So that's always one of the things I tell founders, and that are just getting started, is it's free. You don't need any capital to pick up the phone and call people that might buy your product. Do
Right?
that. Talk to 100 potential customers, and then start building your product.
Yeah.
Once you know how big of a problem it is, what you can sell it for, when you figured all those things out, that are it's free to figure that out, right? It's just your time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the discovery
Then
phase
go build
that's,
the product.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. If you call 100 people and 90 of them say, I need a green wall in my barn, well, then the solution is, create green paint and get some painters and go paint them. You're going to make money. The whole point of a business is to make money. It's not the idea. And ideas are cool, they're great. But a business, when it comes to that, it's like, well, okay, is there a market for this? Who is my customer? Will people buy this? And so, yeah, that's super intelligent to tell founders that, man, because there's a lot of cool tech out there. But you're like, man, I don't know. It's kind of like the 25 buttons in my truck right now. I use like 10 of them. Maybe not even that. And those 10 or 5 that I use are awesome. I gotta have it. I'm never not having those. But the other 15, I'm like, what the hell does this thing do? And how much did that cost me? You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Yep. 100%. Well, and that's I think what's so critical in terms of having success early on, and honestly getting especially in the ag world, getting the companies to a point where they're not just dependent on outside capital to keep existing. Because if you can create that early market traction, start generating, some level of cash flow very early on, it gives you a whole host of other options and opportunities that you're not going to have if you're purely dependent on outside capital to exist.
Yeah, and sometimes we get stuck in our own heads where it's like, this is my baby, this is my idea. And it's really hard to swallow your pride when you talk to people, potential customers, and in this case, even farmers or dealers or OEMs. They really are the salt of the earth people. They're gonna shoot you straight, and they're gonna tell you maybe things that you don't wanna hear, but that's so valuable. And then if you're willing to swallow your pride a little bit and change this and tweak that, now all of a sudden you're making progress and you're building momentum, and to your point, you're cash flowing. And then once you're in, you got kinda your claws in on these, then there's a lot of other alleys you can do and products you can create. So, I'm guessing that's what you've learned now as you've moved on to company number 3 in Mach. Okay, I gotta have some customers, right?
Yeah. And I think with Mach, what I mean, we're still addressing fundamentally the same problem that we were addressing with Smart Ag. Ultimately it's the same problem, right?
Labor.
Labor challenges, yep, labor availability. And what's different with Mach is um, the actual core problem that we're solving is not first the labor. That's a downstream effect of our technology.
Mhm. Mhm.
The immediate problem we're solving, though, is for OEMs that know that they need this for their customer base. They know they need automation. They need to reduce labor requirements on products that they're selling, but don't have the in-house technical expertise to do it all on their own.
Sure.
And so that's really the core problem that we're focused on here. And after we sold Smart Ag to Raven, spent about 2.5 years at Raven, then it became CNH when CNH bought Raven. And what I realized was that one, the fundamental autonomy problem is it's a once in a lifetime kind of big challenge. It's going to take a ton of development. It's going to take a ton of resources and a lot of really smart people working on it very consistently for a long period of time. And the major OEMs in the ag space have the balance sheet, they have the capital to build out really talented engineering teams. And that's fundamentally a big piece of why Case bought Raven, was because they needed that tech and talent to serve their own market and to build out this automation on their own machine platforms. But you have, hundreds and thousands of smaller to mid-size OEMs that are building really important products for the market that don't have that kind of capital. They can't attract that kind of engineering talent. And frankly, they just don't even have the timeline to make it happen, right? Because it can take 10 years from start to finish to get a product into the market if you're doing it on your own. And so that's where we really saw the opportunity with Mach and said, look, can we create that sort of off-the-shelf factory integratable autonomy solution that allows these smaller companies to have a state-of-the-art product at a fraction of the cost and 10 times faster than what they could do internally, or even sometimes what the big guys are doing. And to do that, though, was a challenge because most of the companies that had sort of independent technology that could address this problem were scooped up already, right? You had the Raven acquisition, you had PTX now. So, basically Agco, Trimble, they rolled some other companies into that. So basically this market was kind of barren. Nobody was out there really trying to address the mid-tier OEM space. So that's ultimately the thesis that we started with at Mach was if we can build this product and address this market, there's a true demand for what we're doing. And so Mach was different. We founded it in a different way than like my last two companies. So we actually worked to buy two pre-existing businesses. One was called LSA Autonomy. The other one was called Red Shield Electronics. Both those companies had been multiple years developing technology for OEMs in the off-highway space as a whole. And so when we put the expertise of those teams together, plus the tech stack that they built out, it gave Mach a very comprehensive platform that we could integrate and build on top of hardware and software, which was pretty unique as well. So that's kind of where we started with Mach. And to be honest, we basically started the company with 0 customers. And despite, buying two pre-existing businesses, we really didn't have any commercial customers at the time. We had a product that had been commercially proven, but Deere had acquired our primary commercial customer at that time, and so kind of shifted all new business internal to Deere. So we had a big mountain to climb from day one, and it's been an awesome journey so far. I was so excited about the OEMs that we work with and the opportunities we have to grow with them now.
Oh man, I bet. Hey folks, let's pause the podcast for a second to talk about one of the companies making the Germinate podcast possible. Want to give a huge thanks to GBGI. Here's Mark Adams.
Thanks, Joe. At our shop in Chardon, Ohio, every part we build is made with precision. From the CNC machining to the final inspection, we don't rush because we know your customers can't afford failure. If you're a dealer or OEM who wants reliability built in, give us a look. GBGI, built to spec, built to last. Learn more at gbgiusa.com. GBGI, grow with us.
A exciting partner that we just brought on board. I don't partner with those that I don't believe in. And FEMA is a network that I've been a part of for almost 20 years, over 20 years, actually. And this episode is powered by the Farm Equipment Manufacturers Association. FEMA connects the entire ag equipment ecosystem, not just manufacturers and suppliers, but a wide range of partners who help this industry run, grow, and evolve. In today's world, building farm equipment takes a heck of a lot more than steel, tooling, and production lines. It takes the people and companies who support manufacturers and suppliers behind the scenes, the problem solvers, innovators, creators, integrators, service partners, all you strategic thinkers who help businesses operate smarter, communicate better, and push this industry forward. So whether you build equipment, support the people who build it, or you're a company that wants to plug into the industry in a meaningful way, FEMA is the network to do that. It opens doors. It's where relationships become opportunities, where collaboration creates momentum, and where the future of our industry is being shaped. So if you want to be part of FEMA, reach out to me or reach out to farmequip.org, FARMEQUIP.org, and connect with manufacturers and partners driving agriculture forward. FEMA, where the whole industry connects, grows, and moves together. www.farmequip.org.
So was it intentional to you to say, let's buy some existing companies right out of the bat when you were starting your next business? I mean, there's multiple books on that to say, hey, that's the way to go here. Buy a business versus starting a business because you've got some progress already built in. In this case, you don't have customers because Deere buys your first customer. So, but was that intentional on your part or versus just a regular startup? I gotcha.
100% it was intentional. And the main reason being, Joe, was because I had just lived starting from scratch. So I
Sure.
knew the amount of time, the amount of engineering, and what it would take to get a product that is actually ruggedized and fit for purpose in the off-highway space at, in ag. So, there was, if you have, and I always tell this to our customers too, because I think it's pretty, I mean, it's back to the napkin, but it's pretty rational math. Is it's about $10 million in 5 years if you're starting from scratch to get to a product that is almost field ready, right? And then once you're in the field, you still got to run it for so many hours. You got to validate it across a bunch of different use cases. So what was really fantastic about how we were able to bring Mach together is we had 15 years of that product development already done. And it had been in the field. We had scaled it across 200 some machines. We'd applied it to different use cases. It had survived the test of time to a large degree. And so that was really the catalyst for buying two companies rather than just starting from scratch.
Yeah, you just wanted to expedite the go to market. And that's the thing about agriculture that a lot of people may not realize is the testing phase is not easy because you really can't mimic a farm in a lab. I mean, I know a lot of people try it. A lot of universities do it, but it's not the easiest thing to do in the world. So you've got to go out in the spring, and you can't really farm in the middle of winter in the Midwest or in the Dakotas. You can go into other parts of the country, which you have to these days. But then if you got a product that works for soybeans or works for corn or works for sorghum or cotton, there's only specific areas of the world where that stuff's grown, and there's only specific seasons. So getting things to market, there's a lot of time and a lot of resources and a lot of money. So if you can expedite that, and those startups, by the way, those startups out there that already have that completed, those are the ones to get behind because they've got the research done. They've done the studies. They've spent the money. And now it's just a matter of, okay, let's go chase the ideal customer. And we talked earlier, that's the hard part. But in this case, the hard part is also the money spent on the back end to make sure you've got the product that actually does what you say it does, right?
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, that goes all the way back to the very first company I started, right? We tried to skip that step. And, so we built a bunch of units, put them out there, and within weeks realized that, hey, this was not, it's not going to stand up to the test of time. And there was a major flaws with it. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You have to pay the price. And it's in North America, basically you get one shot a year to try new technology. Most of it's seasonal. And so it's super hard to iterate quickly. And that's where, finding something that had already scaled, it had been in the market for, 4 or 5 years, successfully working was really valuable.
Yeah. Well, and then, to your point, you could have wet fields, you could have dry fields, you could have this condition. It's tough to get things done. So that's a heck of a strategy. And I love how you said, hey, we learned that, we tried to skip that step. And, in this day and age, quality is sort of a buzzword. Nobody really understands what the heck that means. But the reality of it is if you have something, let's say you make a product and it breaks, that means you're pretty much done. You don't have much of a second opportunity there. You're in trouble. Or if you say it does X, Y, Z and it doesn't, ask every major OEM that's invested in a lot of technology over the years. I'm not going to name names here, but you guys all know who they are. And, it can damn near break a business if you have the wrong thing. So the research, the time is so damn important. So lesson to everybody listening. I mean, if you're gonna get into the startup game and if you want to get behind companies, the ones that Colin's talking about are the ones to get behind right now because you have to do that in this day and age. I want to shift gears a little bit to autonomy and autonomous, and it's something that everybody talks. It's been a buzzword in ag for probably 10 years, but dare I say, not a whole heck of a lot. I mean, we see things at like the Agritechnica that you're going to next week. There's cool stuff there, but it's almost very prototypey. Nothing's really taken off and seen the actual fields and got into production levels yet. Am I wrong in thinking that, or, you know?
No, I mean, other than the company that I mentioned earlier that we scaled, to 200 vehicles with, and that again was kind of a key driver for the acquisition. But you're right. I mean, generally speaking, most of the stuff you see out there is very, very limited, very small kind of limited customer trials, if any. And so, you know, I think it's a very accurate assessment to say that autonomy is um, barely even hit like the early adopter core, just because there's not enough technology out there that's field ready, delivering true value.
Is it too complex, or is it what do you think the problem is? Are we trying to make things, just way far out in the future, and maybe we focus on something a little bit more simple, or what's your take on that?
There might be a little bit of that. I mean, they're definitely in the off highway space. So the difference between on highway and off highway is, I think, important to note in terms of how autonomy can scale. The the on highway space, the use case is pretty much always the same, right? We need to take people or cargo from point A to point B and stay within the lines. In the off highway space, you have just almost infinite variability of the job that you're trying to do. And so that's where you do run into some of these challenges because you may have a startup over here working on solar field autonomy and somebody else working on autonomous robots to do weeding, and then somebody else doing grain cart autonomy. So the the build out of those use cases takes some time, and there's a lot of underlying foundational technology that supports those. And so if you're doing it for the first time and you don't have that foundation, it can take years of testing and development to get a solid solution. And even when you do, then there's the environmental variability that you add on top of that, right?
Sure,
So it may
sure.
work great, and these are some of the things that the larger OEMs have started to find. And so you'll see things like, hey, we can sell this autonomous solution for soybean tillage in the upper Midwest. That's the only place, right? And
Right, right.
because that's an environmental variability that you encounter as well. So there's a lot of ways that you can speed that up and address that, but you have to have that you got to have that foundation in place first, and that's got to be a really solid solution before you can really start to scale, not just vertically within a use case, but horizontally within other use cases. And so I think that's where you see a lot of companies at this stage is they're trying to nail that first use case. And I think they'll get there 100%, but it does take a lot of time. Part of it is the cyclicality of the ag market. Part of it is the seasonality. And so if I was to bet, though, I think ag autonomy is going to pretty much be at pace and maybe outpace the on highway piece in the coming years. Just knowing the amount of capital and the number of people that are working on it now compared to back in 2016 when we started Smart Ag, right? Like we are pretty much the only company doing this stuff. So it's changed a lot, and I think the capital markets have recognized that there is a true opportunity here. So you're seeing companies that probably 5 years ago could have never raised very significant capital and make some good progress.
Yeah, I think we've seen such progress on the automotive side. I mean, there's talk now that Tesla's creating a Model 3 that you can buy, park it in your garage, and hit a button and it can go it can go pick up your groceries, taxi people around, and then come back and park itself back in your garage. That to me seems like that's not that far off. Like that's coming. I've ridden in those taxis. What are they called? Waves. It's super cool. It's happening. So the egg side of it is seeing this and going, okay, this can work. Now there's some infrastructure that maybe needs to be in place, but in your opinion here, what's going to be, obviously the majors are working on it, but in your opinion, I don't I personally don't think the shortliners are putting enough emphasis on it, but the ones that maybe can, boy, they could have a major leg up here if there was a couple of them that would just buy in and get one piece of autonomy, something maybe a little bit simpler, and maybe you can explain what that can look like. And what's your take on the shortliners versus the majors?
Well, I mean, I think you know this already, Joe, so I'm kind of speaking to the choir here, but my perspective is the shortliners are the shortliners because they've been faster and more innovative than the majors throughout their history. The reason they exist as a company, they have a market and a meaningful business, is because they've been able to innovate quicker and leverage the fact that they can make a decision to do something in a day where it might take a large OEM 3 or 4 weeks or months just to get through that decision-making process. And then, then they got to talk to legal about it after they make a decision. So then,
Sure.
it goes on forever. So they have an inherent advantage, a size advantage, and they're able to innovate quicker should they choose to, and be able to take those initiatives. And it's not always full autonomy. There's a lot of opportunity for just stepping stones to get to full autonomy, automation.
Give us some examples of that. What do you mean
Yeah,
by that?
so it kind of depends on what the market is, but like we have certain customers that are using our product today to do visual-based steering. And so just like in the on-road space, you can turn on your lane keeping assist, right? And your car will kind of steer itself between the lines generally. So certain OEMs are looking at that and saying, okay, well, we control the speed. Let's control the steering now and allow the operator to have less demand on their attention, right? So they can focus on the pure quality of the job that they're doing rather than just trying to drive the machine. And so I think there's really good opportunities in those types of scenarios. The other one that we look at a lot is behind the hitch automation. And when you think about the future in ag, you'll have autonomous tractors. I don't think anybody's going to argue with you about that today. But a tractor is a Swiss Army knife. You can do 100 things with it. And so when it comes to getting the job done that you're trying to do with a tractor, whether it's tillage or planting or whatever, the implement behind the machine actually has to be intelligent as well. You can't just hook it up to a piece of iron and expect that it's going to get the job done. So if you burn up a bearing or you break a shank or something happens, the implement needs to be able to tell the tractor, look, I'm broken, there's a problem, you need to take this action to resolve it. And so I consider that to be a stepping stone, though, because there's true value for that intelligence on the implement side, even if there's still an operator in the tractor. So when you think about like labor quality issues, not just quantity, but quality, a lot of times we're putting very green people in the cab of, sometimes it's a $500,000 to $2 million rig and expecting them to do a good job. And you've got a huge number of variables that you're trying to manage, settings, talk about buttons in your truck, right? Get in a new tractor and
No
load all those
kidding.
buttons.
No kidding.
Same kind of thing, right? So there's 100 different settings and things that you have to manage. But if you can offload some of that, I think there's real value there. That's why auto steer is the backbone of everything in ag today, is because it is it reduces that operator fatigue and the demand on somebody's attention to do a good job. So,
dude, I did a podcast with a farmer last week, and he was in his combine the whole time, talking to me, shooting the breeze. That was a really cool episode. I think it's out right now as we sit. But the other thing that spawned a thought in me there, Colin, is we're living through this era in the U.S. specifically, probably globally, of labor is not the same as it was, I don't know, 10 years ago. Like COVID did something to everybody, all the good baby boomers that were in these manufacturing jobs and on the farm, they all retired. And now, every millennial wants to be a TikToker or something, or a social media influencer. The labor is sort of different. I don't want to call all laborers crappy. I don't think that's the case, but it definitely is different. I think everybody can notice that. Even if you walk into Subway, I mean, you see it. Uh, I think the mentality sort of now is, well, it's this fatigue and everyone's going to change, and we're going to train everybody up and coach them up and get them young. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good strategy. That seems like that's not going to work. I think that's not going to be there. So the next step here is, okay, to your point, I think you said it, and you said it way better than me, but how do you make them more intelligent? How do you make them more efficient? Whatever it is that you said there. And honestly, I think the only way to do it is through technology. You have no
Mhm.
choice here. They aren't going to be like they were in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Those days are gone.
Yeah. Well, and I do. I obviously agree. I mean, that's what our business is focused on
Sure.
providing. I think the challenge that we've seen in a lot of cases, especially with the mid-tier OEMs, is that there's pretty significant apprehension to technology in certain markets. I think part of that is because some of the manufacturers who dip their toe in the water, they have had a bad experience, and they've integrated some technology that probably didn't go through all that quality refinement, or maybe it wasn't really fit for purpose for the jobs that they're trying to do. And so there is still this mindset in a lot of, especially the ag space, of let's build as simple bulletproof iron as possible and eliminate every single wire harness or anything that could potentially go wrong. Let's get it off of there.
We heard that
And
last week. Yeah.
yeah, 100%, right?
Right.
We heard that last week, and we heard it from the dealers and from the OEMs. And I think it's something that we need to be cautious of, because if that is the mindset you stick with, there will be a point where somebody else has a solution that works better than yours, and it solves more problems than your solution could solve. And I would also say, like, look, good technology is different than bad technology, and so you do need to be very careful about who you're working with, and what kind of technology you're integrating to ensure that you really do have a strong solution. And so, it's easy to blame technology and say, look, it's the problem. I think the reality is a lot of the companies that have sold the technology into the space haven't done their due diligence on the market. They don't understand the ruggedness requirements. They don't understand, hey, if Joe Blow puts a power washer to this device, what's going to happen to it, right? It's like some of those things just get missed by the technology providers out there. And so, I would definitely encourage any OEM at this stage to read the writing on the wall and say, look, this is going to happen.
Mhm.
How can I take the competitive advantage that I've always had, which is able to move faster, innovate quicker, and leverage that to get a step ahead of the big guys? Because that's where they've consistently grown the business in the past. So how do you do that in this new era of technology that's coming?
Yeah, that's freaking super intelligent, man. It's so true. And I mean, think of and that's another weird phase we're living through now, is that, like, for every one person that loves technology, or let's just talk AI, there's like three that are like, it's the devil, it's going to kill us, we're all dead. Don't even, I'm going to go back to writing things down on a tablet.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, the counter argument to that is, and which is, I think, true. Well, okay, if we don't adapt AI in the United States, well, you think China is going to not? So then what? We're just going to fall behind? I don't think that's a good strategy. So to your point, find the right partners here, find the right people that know and are educated and have experience and expertise in how this technology works, and then build the solution almost together. And I mean, that's what you're doing when you're going to FEMA. That's what you're doing when you're heading off tomorrow to fly off to Germany. You're creating partners in this industry to be able to build something that, to your point, These guys, that's the only way a shortliner can get an advantage. You got to be quick, you got to be innovative, and you got to be ahead of the majors. You've always done that. So technology is this big, scary, crazy thing. I get it, but the train's going, man. You either got to get on board or it's going to go past you.
Yeah, well, I would say, make sure whoever you're working with from a technology standpoint, you don't have to explain what a combine harvester is, right? Make sure they actually understand that use case, and it's really great if they've actually lived it. They've run a tractor. They've used those types of tools. They've grown up on a farm. They
Amen.
understand that
Amen.
type of market and the demands there. The other thing I hear a lot too, Joe, is it's too complicated, right? And it's not a quality thing, it's a complexity thing. And again, I will say there's a lot of horribly designed technology out there, and it intimidates a lot of people. It's like, grandpa will never touch this, right? And you hear that a lot where, hey, yeah, so the son comes back and he starts adding technology to the
Guilty
farm.
as charged. I've said
Yeah.
that numerous times on this podcast. Yes.
But I would bet 9 times out of 10, grandpa has a phone,
Yep.
right? And he uses it for everything day to day, checks the weather.
And he loves Facebook and he loves Twitter and yep.
Yeah. And so we're at this cool point in the world where, you used to have to spend a ton of time on something called UX, which is user experience. So what UX it ultimately comes down to is, how do you navigate the solution? What buttons do you have to push, and how do you flow through an app or whatever it is? Well, the reality is there's a universal UX that exists today because of smartphones. And so whether you're a startup or you're a major OEM building technology, you don't have to spend years and tons of money going through this whole user experience design process that traditionally you'd have to do. All you need to do is just mimic a smartphone user interface as much as possible, make it intuitive based off of that, and people aren't going to have a hard time using it. And that's really the underlying philosophy, I think, between where we were, 10 years ago to today, is there's a lot of kind of pre-baked solutions out there, so you don't have to like start from scratch. And you see a lot of major companies still mess this up, in my opinion, right? They'll make a display just very complicated. There's a whole bunch of different pages. It's hard to get to where you want to go. It's hard to change settings. And I think as soon as we see more companies just adopt sort of this standardized smartphone layout for any technology they put out there, the adoption rate's going to go through the roof.
I mean, 1,000%, because now what do we all say? I can't imagine my life without this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which, it may be pathetic, but it's reality too, folks. It is what it is. I hate that phrase, but it is what it is. So, Colin, man, I could talk to you for hours. This stuff fascinates me, and it's I think we're just, like, to your point, we're on the cusp of something really big here. So I got to have you back on here. Get back from Agritechnica, and we'll talk. We'll dive deeper. I have a feeling this is going to be a really popular episode. And before we leave, tell everybody how to get in touch with you, how to get in touch with Mach. I'll put that all in the show notes as well, but give a shout out to you guys right now, how you get in touch with you.
Yeah. Pretty simple. The web address is mach.io, and there's a bunch of information there about our products, different industries we serve. There's some interesting white papers, case studies about how we've deployed technology in the past. So definitely check out the website. It's a good resource. You can get in touch with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, all the social media platforms as well. And then if you're interested in reaching out to me directly, feel free to shoot me an email. It's Colin@mach.io.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Colin Hurd, CEO of Mach Shortliners. Pay attention. You're going to be having conversations with this guy. So, Colin, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Reach driven leaders with the Germinate podcast. Sponsor our show to align your brand with actionable insights and purposeful growth. Contact us today at embosales.com/podcast
That's www.embosales.com/podcast to partner and inspire our growing audience of professionals.
Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.